All right, now we are shifting our gears to explore the power of early leadership and innovative thinking. Our upcoming session is called Teaching Kids to Think Like CEOs. We'll dive into how educators can help students develop critical thinking, decision making, and entrepreneurial skills from a young age. This discussion is packed with practical insights on preparing the next generation of bold, creative, and confident leaders. Let's go ahead and welcome our moderator. We have Robert Ramirez, the senior professor at DeVry University. He will be joined with panelist Tom Chiappetta, the executive director at Fairfield County Sports Youth Foundation and Hall of Fame, as well as Julie Annixter, the founder of New Scenario, as well as Anshul Garg, the head of product at Amazon, and Brandon Jackson, the assistant principal and athletic director at Pocatello Chubbuck School District 25, and Arnold James, who is also a teacher at the Emfrey Reen Teacher Club. Welcome all of them to the stage.
So this is the last presentation of the day. So what I want you guys to do is get some energy going, stand up, run out to all those people who went and they're lying down by the swimming pool or at the casino. Get them back because this is the most important presentation. And what I want to say is we've got a fantastic group of panelists. We've had so much fun. We've met a couple times on Zoom and just we met out there for 45 minutes. We've enjoyed each other tremendously, and we got a great group of people. So our topic today is teaching kids to think like a CFO or CEO, I should say. And that is so important because, as you know, we have so much stress in our lives right now. There's geopolitical stress going on, wars. There's our government, and there's the economy. And now kids are also worried about AI. Are they going to have a job? AI is being integrated into more than 90% of all companies, and they're frozen in fear with what to do. And so it's our job as teachers, professionals, business owners to take our best assets, which are our kids, and teach them up, build up their confidence, because they are the next generation of leaders. And we need these leaders because we're going to fall into retirement and we need them to support us, right? So we need these leaders. We need to build them up. So I'm going to turn it over to the panelists who are going to introduce themselves in a moment. And my name is Dr. Robert Ramirez. I've been a professor for many years. And the classes I like to teach the most are business courses, but I also like to empower my students to move towards financial freedom. They don't like to talk about money in the classroom, but why are you trying to learn so you can move up in your education, get a better job. So I like to teach them about money, and it's something that should be taught in the early days of their education as well. But let me pass it on to the panel. We're going to start at the end with Julie to introduce herself.
And then thank you, Robert. And it's been so great to be with all of you people who have inspired me today. Julie Annixter. I started in the arts, then I went into instructional design. I got a degree in that, ran a couple of training departments, spent a lot of time in the corporate world, and now I'm very focused on working with high schools and colleges. I have some incredible partners who bring simulations and innovation to bear, and I've worked for a lot of CEOs, some great ones and some terrible ones. And when I look at high school kids in particular today, I think, wow, there's a gap between where they're at and where CEOs are at. And I'm looking forward to exploring that.
Thank you. Next, I'll turn it over to Anshul.
Yeah, thanks, Robert. So my name is Anshul Garg. I'm the principal product manager and head of product at Amazon. My teams build products and systems that enable our retail vendors provide funding for Amazon services like marketing, promotions, damages, coverage, fleets, etc. It's a very important lever for Amazon profitability as well as for vendors to grow their business. So 46 billion business worldwide for Amazon and for our vendors. When I think about CEO mindset, I think about Amazon and my day-to-day work, and it's very ingrained in our day-to-day operations in the way of Amazon leadership principles. And the way I say about it is, these principles tell us how we handle problems, how we deal with the problems, and how we think about it like a CEO in a way, a single-threaded leader, we say it as a term in Amazon, which means that we have principles like ownership, customer obsession, accountability, and the way we think about it in the sense of bias for action. And for us, CEO mindset is not authority, it is accountability. It is strategic thinking, it is vision. And that's how we deal with problems. We deal with our day-to-day customer issues, and we deal with how we solve problems for our customers. So that's what I'm looking forward to talk more about.
Thank you. Next, for best and most well-dressed person, Armin James.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Armand James. I'm a 9th and 10th grade social studies and ethics teacher at South Philadelphia High School. I also have a boys and men program after school with my boys and during the day. And I liken that to the CEO mindset because our main idea is to solve problems and be innovators and leaders. And I wanted to have a mindset of a young CEO, just with solving small, minor problems that you have in school or in your personal life, whether it's relationships, whether it's connections with your teachers, how to be respectful in certain situations. So we try to push that CEO mindset of solving problems, and as young men, not complaining about the problems, like my father always say, but finding a solution to problems. And I think that's what CEOs do. We want to implement that with our boys and our young girls at our school.
Thank you. And Brandon?
My name is Brandon Jackson. I'm a high school assistant principal and athletic director. The thing that I think about in instilling the athletes that I'm over is again, solving problems. But not just solving problems, because we can solve problems all day long, but it's getting to the queen bee, getting to the root of the problem, getting to the one problem that's causing all of the other problems. And so how that ties into being a CEO is we can experience all sorts of things going on within our companies and within our schools, but we can't really fix it unless we get to the root, the true problem.
Thank you. And next is Tom.
My name is Tom Chiappetta. I live in Fairfield County, Connecticut, and I've been running a nonprofit, as you heard, my Fairfield County Sports Foundation and Hall of Fame. It's a nonprofit that really focuses on personal development through sports as well as an active, healthy lifestyle. So we've been working for kids. We just celebrated our 20th anniversary. Secondly, I'm also very involved in the direction of another nonprofit in our county it's called Kids Helping Kids. And it's pretty much what it says. The kids create all their projects. They plan them, they implement them, and they're designed to be really for underserved students and youth organizations, that we can have them be the beneficiaries of that because they're not really going to have access. And KHK has been 15 years of working to create leadership amongst from middle school kids right through high school, through their college times, and when they get into the workplace. And finally, as we were talking about the mindset of CEOs, I've had my own consulting firm for, I don't know, it's probably about 25 years now. It's called Good Sports Solutions. And I've had several clients over the years, and most of them were directed at young people, finding ways to support them. And when you have your own business, you are a CEO. I had a business prior to that that was kind of I would say pilot test for me to see if I could do it. But you're running every operation, every department, and having young people get exposed to that early on, which is what our KHK, our leadership programs that we've been doing with throughout our county have been very successful.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you. Now I'm going to turn it over to the audience because I want this conversation to be more engaging, and you are part of the program, and so feel free to raise your hand, ask any question at any time that you have. We're going to dig a little bit deeper, and we'll talk about some of the problems that we're seeing in our youth that we need to overcome. Because like I said at the beginning, that's our future. We want them to excel. So let's dig in a little bit deeper. Anybody who wants to participate, go ahead.
I've
Talk about
mentored
what
a
are some-
couple of amazing young high school women. They're tremendous athletes. One is a pitcher, one is a catcher. They've gone as far as you can go with baseball. But we've talked about careers they have no clue what's out there, what they might do. And, we talk about the CEO mindset. Absolutely, it's about solving problems. It's also about looking out into the world and seeing what's possible. I mean, that's what Starbucks was, right? That's what so many of the biggest companies that we all are part of our lives, Google, et cetera, started in garages. Somebody said, I see an opportunity in the world to do something. I'd like to try it. So that CEO mindset of reading the world and seeing what's possible, Tom just talked about giving kids an opportunity to do that. You do that in your school in Philadelphia. Are we giving students a chance to look out into the world and try to create something, to have that kind of agency? Because I think that's a big part of what I don't see happening in schools.
Anybody else want to add on to that?
I think a lot of it depends on, a lot of it is creating opportunities for kids to play in the proverbial sandbox, to interact, get meaningful interaction with the curriculum that we're trying to teach. How is it relevant, as it was brought up in earlier sessions? How is it relevant in their lives? And what can I do? Not only how is it relevant, but what can I do with it to make it a profession in my career, in my life and going forward?
Yeah, one thing I'd like to add, because my fellow colleagues here, several are educators. I'm not an educator, but I've been working in the nonprofit world for over 30 years. And one of the things we've been doing are financially supporting a lot of these things, working very closely with all the schools, providing resources. And as I mentioned with Kids Helping Kids, there's opportunity for young people to learn. They don't have to learn in the classroom every single day, every single moment. When you get out in the world and you're making decisions, it really brings their confidence level up. And at the end of the day, we're kind of outsiders from the classroom, but we work closely again with the teachers, with the superintendents, with anybody that's going to be working with the young people in school. But having these outside sources, and whether they're after school programs in any shape or form, they don't have to be athletic. And there's more to be learned sometimes after they get out of school as a second piece. And they might find, to your point, Julie, athletes in particular, one of the things we did for, 8 or 10 years was having a career in sports off the field. Athletes are perfect specimens for being a great employee. The discipline they learn, the teamwork, all of those things. And it doesn't have to just be sports. It can be in a band, in theater, all of those things that are there. So if you combine the two, and several of the panelists have been talking about the hardships of teachers, which we know it's very, very difficult to get through. That support can lend itself to a different approach.
Brandon, you had an acronym that you talked about last week that wanted you to share. What was that acronym?
So one of the things that I try to instill in anybody that I've come across in any of the programs when I was in the classroom as a principal, as an assistant principal, now as an athletic director, is the color red. And I like to say that I like to bleed red, but really it's an acronym for character and character traits. And a lot of the character traits that we talk about fall under one of three categories: respect, excellence, and discipline. Mm-hmm. Okay? Respect, in getting respect in order to get respect, you have to give it. So teaching our athletes to how to be respectful, teaching them to use manners, please, thank you, sirs, ma'ams. Okay? It's because manners are just a way to show that you respect them, that you care for them, that you want to listen to them. Then once we get into that respect world, we can carry it as far as on the field, respecting the game, respecting the other team and what they bring, respecting our teammates and what they bring to the table, and understanding that hopefully they understand what I bring to the table, and building that teamwork. And then we can go into as far as respecting the equipment, the things that we have, the buildings that we have, so that we can pass those on to generations. My first teaching job was at my alma mater in Idaho Falls, and it had been 20 plus years since I had graduated, and it looked like it was the day that it opened, because the building was taken care of and the students were taught to respect the facilities and to take care of the things that we have. Now, when we do that, we're going to have the respect, and we're going to have it the utmost respect, right? Which is excellence, okay? And with excellence, I like to equal that to class. We're going to do everything with class. We want to be the people that look for answers. To turn to look for answers. Okay, and then the last thing is, how are we going to get there? And that's through discipline. Okay, the other definition of discipline: being able to do the things that we know that we have to do, even though we don't want to do it.
It's excellent. I've got another acronym you guys can take away from this as well. It's called MPS. And when teaching kids to be CFO of a company, CEOs of companies, you need momentum, right? You gotta. You're going to fall down, but you got to get up and you try something different, just like riding a bike, right? So momentum is so important. You got to have that every day, and mindset is part of that. And then you got to have the P, purpose. You have that purpose. What is your purpose? That's the big why. Why? Why do I want to do it for my family? I want to do it for myself. I want to do it to help others. So why and purpose is really big. And then the last one is strategy. What's your strategy? What skills are you learning, right? What skills are you going to develop? So I always like to ask my kids once a week, what's your MPS? How are you doing on your MPS this week? Any other thoughts from anybody? Go ahead.
Maybe, I think Armand, you can go first.
Well, I want to be honest with you. Get back to your point about some of the problems we see. Some of the problems I see is grit from my students. When we push them, I think they quit immediately. And I don't really blame the kids. I think it's a culture that us adults, teachers, parents, society has built. We make excuses. Sometimes when kids give me papers, I'm offended at some of the stuff that they give me, but so many teachers accept it. So I think that, a lot of our students, to teach that CEO mindset, you got to have that mindset. Like you said, if you fall down, you got to get back up. I can't give you a paper. Yes, the paper might be boring. It may be boring, but you can't quit and say, I don't want to read it because it's 3 pages. So we got to push our kids from a teacher perspective, administration perspective, parents. There's some kids that I know damn well they shouldn't be passing my class, but the pressure that sometimes the school or the environment put on you to push those kids along is tough. So how can we create that that CEO mindset when I'm I'm passing you, and I don't think you really earned that grade. But it's pressure coming from people up top about funding and different things. So I want to teach that CEO mindset, but there's a lot of stuff we got to do culturally to change inside our classroom first, and also in the administrative level and society.
Got a question.
I think we have a question.
You know, if I could, I think one of the key things that a CEO does is they lead. That's kind of what we're all talking about, problem solving and respect and discipline. And CEOs don't lead by themselves. They're always part of a team. And the CEOs that I know that are powerful and excellent and successful trust their team members. It's an ensemble approach. And I think we need to give students a chance to lead. We need to give them that chance to run those teams. And unfortunately, the only places I really see that are in sports and theater and performance, where student athletes get to lead a team, student actors get to maybe, assistant direct. I wish we could do more of that, because CEOs are never doing it alone.
Other thing that I'd like to just add, for young kids and the kids that are maybe in the middle school and high school, one other thing that is very critical is to understand that failure is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
So this is something that we actively do in corporate world as well. We talk about it as bias for action or embrace failures. So for kids, it's very critical to understand that failure is not something that is discouraging or that is looked upon as bad thing. It is actually a learning opportunity. So if kids can see that failure is not bad, it is just another step towards success, I think it will help them immensely to actually get to their end point. Because one thing that we see even in corporate world, fear of failure. What that means is that people try to stop working or try to stop solving a problem because they fear that if they solve something and it is not good, or if it fails or it is not giving the solution or the answer, then it will be bad on them, and they will be looked down, or they will be looked lower than their peers, which once that mindset builds in, it's never ending. It will continue in that manner. This is something that CEOs do differently. A CEO mindset is to embrace that failure, look about that failure as a learning opportunity, and then keep moving forward. I think this is something that we have to bring in very actively into our kids, and that's one of the part of the kids of the CEO mindset that we are talking about.
I see some heads nodding out there. What do you?
Question.
Oh, there's a question there. Go ahead, sir.
Just yell.
So I sat on the student attendance review board to work through the students who were having difficulties attending school, and so the teachers tried everything with one of the. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes.
Yep.
Tried everything, and they just couldn't find a way. And he was a smart kid. He was not. He didn't have. He didn't have.
But I can hear you.
Yeah, we're good.
We're good.
Yep.
He didn't have like a lot of emotional problems, or he wasn't. It wasn't that he was not incapable of doing the work, but they couldn't find a way. He just didn't care. He really didn't care. And so we had a session, and I actually talked to him, and I'm telling you this story because I wonder if this is something you've come up against, if this is a technique you've used. What he wanted to do was he wanted to run a business, and so what I told him was, well, think of it like this. If you run a business, do you ever have to do things you don't want to do in order to make your business successful? And he said, well, yeah, of course I do. And so I said, well, think of it this way. How much longer do you have to go until you graduate high school? And he said, 2 years. And I said, you don't want to go to school for 2 years, do you? He said, no, I don't. Well, what if I told you that having that high school diploma will make your business more successful? Do you think that's something you can motivate yourself to do for 2 years? so that when you graduate, you can go on to business and do what you want. And it really made a dramatic difference. So I think that, and I heard that earlier in this discussion, that trying to use that CEO mindset to make learning relevant. I'm not saying that the only goal of education is to introduce students into a career in business, but it certainly is something that can be used to make learning relevant when you see that students aren't very motivated. So I'm offering that. I don't know if that's something you've encountered.
No, and you're absolutely correct. To go along with what you're saying, and then with what Armin and Anshul and Julie said, I have a BHAG, and it's my overall way that I view things, my goal. So what
Explain
BHAG
BHAG.
is, what BHAG is, and I'm going to get there, and we'll make it school appropriate, okay? Because there's a lot of acronyms that you can make out of it, but it's my big, hairy, audacious goal, okay? And in that is I am trying to make my students or anybody within the school or anybody that I come across feel safe enough to be able to attempt and to think about and to try new things without the fear of ridicule, failure, and rejection. And so that's exactly what you're talking about, is creating that safe platform for these students to be able to perform, to be able to go out and to try new things. And it's not just students, it's teachers, it's administrators, it's anybody that's involved with any of these things. It goes back to the parents, giving them the platform to help their kids.
You know, if I could,
Please.
I think for this young man or for any student we want to see flourish, what are they passionate about? And I love this thing about, if you're passionate about it, go out and try it. There's a film I would encourage everyone to go look for. It's called You Don't Know Jack. Beth Comstock, when she was the head of marketing for General Electric, met this young man, Jack Andraka, who's somebody in his family had cancer, and he decided, he was a kind of a science kid, that he wanted to come up with a test to detect, I forget which kind of cancer, but he wanted to detect it early because his uncle's diagnosis was late. Jack came up with a test to detect this kind of cancer when he was in high school. And he took it to, I think, 80 or 90 labs. They all turned him down until he took it to, I think it was Johns Hopkins. And it's a little 7-minute film with this kid who's talking about why he wanted to come up with this cancer test and how many times it got turned down, and then how it finally felt when somebody said, let's try it. And he went and participated in that lab experiment.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that's the name of the program. Yeah.
Student-run ventures.
Use the mic.
Is it working? Okay.
Yep.
We do these things called student-run ventures, and I've tried to create these. I've worked with these. I've gone to universities. Millikan University has like 8 of these things happening. And what happens in this opportunity of leadership, particularly for Black and Brown youth, is that now you're in a situation where there's an expectation of excellence. There's an expectation of discipline, and it changes you. It changes you. And we think that you're creative, you're not going to get a leadership opportunity, right? And this is where Millikan totally flips the script. So for people who are looking for creative opportunities, student-run ventures. There's one in publishing. There's one in printmaking. There's one in city politics. There's a coffee shop on campus, y'all. I was like trying to get a coffee. 4 kids were trying to figure out, do you like soy or is it almond milk? And where did we put it? Did somebody buy it? Right? And just having these leadership opportunities, I feel, particularly for creative youth who are of color, are critical moments.
Well, that's one of the things I've been emphasizing. Sometimes kids don't perform well in school for a lot of different reasons. My wife's sister wrote a book called The Trouble with Boys. Anybody who has boys, I recommend it to you. It was a bestseller. But outside of school, they feel safer. It might be with a coach. It's not a parent. It might be with a pastor. Anybody who can get through to them, and they can bring that into the classroom, which I think, I know from our experiences. I work with one of the greatest nonprofit organizations you'll ever see anywhere. And all I can tell you is that every kid that goes there winds up, they graduate from high school, most of them go to college, and they have all kinds of programs and activities and bringing people in from the business community and giving these kids hope that they can succeed. And a lot of times the classroom is a tough place to do it. I know so some of these things, volunteering, okay, and internships are two very traditional things for young people, okay, particularly younger people.
We out of time? Is that time?
I think we
I think
have
we have
Was that a
2 minutes.
mistake or time?
I think we got 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
5 minutes? Okay.
But what I'm saying is that for younger people, kids that are from 6, 7, 8, 10 years old, volunteering at things get them to meet other people, to do something significant in their life, because most of those kids, sometimes their neighborhood is the only place they get to. You can take them out. We've had 5 or 6 events. We had 500 summer camp kids from 7 or 8 different communities get together for an afternoon of a field day. All of those things can have impact. So I would really recommend that finding the right people in your community who are working with the kids out of school and having relationships with them, because the group I'm talking about, they run the after-school programs in the public schools in Norwalk, Connecticut. Unheard of, okay? Because most schools don't want outsiders coming in their building. But they are building the blocks. Everybody benefits from it. So keep that in mind. There's a lot of help out there and a lot of great people. And lots of funding goes to those things. I can tell you that.
Closing thoughts, but we got one more question back there.
Good afternoon. I have a question. By the way, I really love your highlights of developing the students to become a CEO, because I am from the school district wherein building student leader is very evident, wherein we have this what we call the student-centered learning type. So, but my question is, what do you think is the most difficult mindset shift for educators to develop and teach the students leadership? What do you think is the challenge of the educators? Why it's hard? Or sometimes it's a challenge for them to teach student leadership? Thank you.
I think I can take one other example I can take from the real world, and I think it's a real challenge as well, is the right answer trap. So the problem that we face today is we look for that perfect information before we start building the solution, which is impossible, which is not possible in a real world scenario. What we look for or what we wait for often to gather all the information, to find all the right clues, write all the right inputs before we can find an answer or we can provide an answer, which doesn't happen or happens too late. This is where a CEO mindset comes in. They look for that imperfect information, or they find that imperfect information and start with that. And the concept here is not to get to the right answer immediately. Instead, get to that in steps, which is what we called as iterative development or iterative mindset. Here, the idea is that I'm not looking for the right answer. I'm looking for better answers. So every time I build on my initial solution, I'm going to a next better answer, not the right answer, because the concept of right answer is actually very wrong. The moment I find the right answer, the world has already shifted. The right answer no longer is relevant anymore. This is what we face in our real world, corporate world every day. The solution I'm building today is not relevant for next year, next 2 years. So what I'm looking for is building my answer, building my solution in such a way that I can keep building on top of it. This is what kids has to understand. If they keep looking for the right answer, they will never move forward. So we have to push them to not look for that right answer, but instead look for what is the next best answer. And I think that will help them keep pushing forward.
Could I add to that? What I see as the biggest challenge is that you guys all work so hard, particularly the educators, the teachers in the room. I have so much respect for you. I would love to see you take more risks to get what you need, the resources you need. You all have enormous creativity and generosity, but you don't always have the time, the resources, the support to go with your ideas. And I say, go for it. You're role models. You are for our society.
One solution that I think works at our school, thanks to our community liaison and our admin, I think every school should invest in like a community liaison. Ms. Cruz is a community liaison at our school, where she creates partnerships with the Kimmel Center, the mayor's office, the Sixers, the banks. So when they come in, sometimes the students are tired of hearing teachers talk all the time. They tune us out after a while, especially in April. But when you bring other people from the community coming to class, banks, different people who have businesses, that's a great avenue for a lot of leaders in this room, is to have a community liaison person that's designated to your school that get them involved in community initiatives with banks and different corporations.
There's lots of ways to get educated. Ask for the help, find the help. The people in your communities, these are their kids. They want everybody to be successful. They want everybody to have some hope and opportunity. So it's very important that you work with everybody in the community, no matter who they are or what, if they're going to be able to help. Because resources for teachers and schools are getting less, not more. Most of you teachers buying, it's unheard of. You're buying how many things you have to buy to keep your classroom going, right? Well, that's it. So there are people in your areas, no matter where you live, no matter whether it's wealth or not, they want to do right by our children. I just firmly believe that, and I think you all do, or you wouldn't be teachers or people in there. So work harder and smarter to get those people behind you, because I live in a place that is maybe the wealthiest place in the entire United States, Fairfield County, just out of New York, okay? But it also has more poverty, and the gap between the haves and the have-nots is bigger than anywhere else. So you have to figure it out. CEOs are good at doing one thing, I believe, okay? Because I worked corporately at all these companies, okay? They listen to the people on the ground, because CEOs don't solve problems. They really don't. Their mindset is a big picture. They have 500 things. And first and foremost, most of the time, it's the stock price. Well, it's true, okay? And they make decisions accordingly. As I said, I worked at News Corp, I worked at Viacom, I worked at CBS. Find the people on the ground. Sometimes it only takes one person. And I've been very fortunate, because we're all out pounding the pavement to try to get some extra dollars. Well, in the last 3 years after the pandemic, when we weren't sure we were going to be able to continue, these last 3 years, we gave back $200,000 to 25 or 30 different youth organizations in various amounts from 7 or 8 of our communities. So
Thank you.
there are people out there.
Thank you. So as our youth, that's our future. So let's take care of our future. And I want to thank the audience for being such a great audience. And I want to thank the panel. You guys were fantastic. It's been a pleasure working with you. Thank you, everybody.